Chapter 4. The hologram of Darth Sidious seemed to make the bridge of the battleship darker. Just by being there, Newt glanced around to make sure that Lieutenant Dauphine was out of sight. There was no sense in annoying the Sith Lord by obeying just his direct order, and said, "The invasion is on schedule, my lord."
Good. I have the Senate bogged down in my procedures. By the time this incident comes up for a vote, they will have to accept your control of the system.
I wish that were certain, Newt thought. The Queen has great faith in the Senate. We'll side with her, he told Sidious in a neutral tone.
Queen Amidala is young and naive,
Sidious said dismissively.
Controlling her will not be difficult. You have done well, Viceroy.
Newt sighed in relief as the hologram faded away. Dealing with Darth Sidious was almost as nerve-wracking as that business with the Jedi had been. As the lines of the hologram vanished, Rune Hako turned toward Newt and said, "You didn't tell them about the missing Jedi. No need to report that to him until we have something to report," Newt said, and he hoped it would be good news. He suspected that Darth Sidious wouldn't be nearly so pleased about the success of the invasion once he learned that the Jedi were missing. The bongo the Gungans had promised to turned out to be tiny, a bat-winged submarine with 3 bubble canopies and a strange drive that looked like long trailing tentacles. Obi-Wan eyed it dubiously, but it was better than walking or swimming. He slid into the pilot's chair. "This nutsin'," Jar Jar muttered, taking the co-pilot seat. Obi-Wan glanced at him in irritation, then looked up at Qui-Gon, who was already sitting in the rear. "Master, why'd you keep dragging these pathetic lifeforms along with us?" Qui-Gon only smiled. The sub arched past tall coral pillars. Reefs stretched away in all directions, like forests made of lace. As the bongo started down the dark waters below, Obi-Wan flicked a switch and the sub's lights came on. He could see Jar Jar becoming more and more uneasy as they went deeper. Nervous guides make mistakes. Best give him something else to think about. "Why were you banished, Jar Jar?"
"'Tis a long tale," Jar Jar said. "But the small part would be Mr. Clumsy."
"I banished you because you were clumsy?" Obi-Wan asked skeptically. He had seen many different cultures during his years with Qui-Gon, but had never seen or heard of someone with laws against clumsiness.
"Misa caused maybe 1 or 2 little bitty accidents,"
Jar Jar said in an offhand tone, waving his arm expansively.
"You'd say boom, I guess, uncratch their bosses, illy bivadin."
Something struck the bongo from behind, causing everyone to jerk forward in their chairs. Obi-Wan looked back and saw a glowing fish-like creature behind them. It had grabbed the end of the bongo with its long, sticky tongue. The subs shuddered as the creature began to pull them in. Jar Jar shrieked. Obi-Wan wrestled with the controls, to no avail. The sea creature drew them closer and closer. Soon its jaws began grinding away at the rear of the sub. Suddenly they shot free, hardly daring to believe their luck. Obi-Wan glanced over his shoulder, and the fish that had tried to eat the sub was writhing in the teeth of an even larger sea monster. "There's always a bigger fish," Qui-Gon commented as Obi-Wan turned back to the controls. "If there's a bigger one than that one, I don't want to meet it," Obi-Wan thought. No wonder Jar Jar didn't want to come with us. As the sub dodged around a coral outcropping and into a tunnel, the lights flickered. Obi-Wan heard a sizzling noise, and the giant fish had damaged the bongo. Water was dripping into the cabin, and the power lines were shortening. The sound of the drive lessened, and so did their speed. Obi-Wan pulled a multi-tool from his belt pack. This is going to be tricky. He couldn't shut the power off to work on the line safely, so if he slipped, the energy would fry him. Beside him, Jar Jar's voice climbed in panic, but Obi-Wan had no time to soothe the frightened Gungan. Then Qui-Gon's quiet voice said, "Stay calm, we're not in trouble yet."
"What yet?"
Jar Jar yelled.
"Monsters out there, leaking in here, all stinking and no power? Where do you start thinking we in trouble?"
Obi-Wan could see Jar Jar's point. He twisted the last wires, wondering whether he would ever attain his master's unshakable serenity, or feel the Force as clearly and as consistently as Qui-Gon. "Power's back," he said. The lights flickered on as he spoke, revealing yet another enormous fish right in front of them.
"Monsters back?"
Jar Jar countered.
"We's in trouble now."
"How many of these things are there?" Obi-Wan grabbed the controls and swung the ship around. The giant fish creature darted after them. Obi-Wan increased their speed. The sub shot out of the tunnel, straight towards a huge eel-like monster that had eaten the first fish. Jar Jar shrieked again as the monster snapped out of the bongo. Obi-Wan dodged, hoping his makeshift repairs would hold. The monster's teeth missed by inches. It snapped again, and its jaws closed around the fish creature that had chased them through the tunnel. Taking advantage of the distraction, Obi-Wan sent the little sub zipping away. For what seemed like hours, they wove and ducked and dodged past dozens of huge sea monsters, all which they had something in common. They were hungry. At last, the water grew lighter, and the monsters fewer. Soon, the sub was rising towards the surface. In a cloud of bubbles, the bongo broke out into the open air as last. The engine died, and the sun began drifting with the current. Obi-Wan switched off the bubble canopies, glad to be back in fresh air. He hadn't been entirely sure the sub's power supply would last long enough. They'd even come to the right place, the city of Theed, capital of Naboo, stretched along the shoreline. Beside him, Jar Jar heaved a mingled sigh of relief and amazement.
"We's safe now!"
But as they climbed onto the shore, a mechanical voice behind them said,
"Drop your weapons."
As one, the Jedi turned. A skeletal Nemoidian battle droid stood threatening them with its lasers.
"I said drop your weapons,"
it repeated as Jar Jar joined them. Qui-Gon lit his lightsaber and slashed the droid in half. Obi-Wan stared down at the sizzling wreckage. They got here before us, he thought. This is going to be harder than we had hoped. The elegant throne room of the Naboo Palace was crowded with Trade Federation battle droids. The sight made Amidala want to weep. I won't cry, she thought. I won't give them the satisfaction. Even if the guards weren't paying attention to me. Once she knew that the Trade Federation was really invading, she had switched places with one of her handmaidens. Now, her friend and handmaiden Sabe wore the white face paint and black feathered gown and headdress of the queen. And Amidala was just Padme, who wore the same flame-colored robes as the rest of the queen's handmaiden bodyguards. Padme did not exist, except when Amidala was in disguise. I hope this works, she thought. The use of a decoy was established by the rulers before her, but Amidala had never needed it until now. As they worked their way into the palace, the battle droids brought their captives into the throne room. Amidala could see Governor Bibble and Captain Panaka along with several of the palace guards. The smug Nemoidian viceroy explained that the prisoners with barely concealed satisfaction, but he didn't seem to have noticed anything odd about Queen Amidala, yet. How will you explain this invasion to the Senate? Sire Bibble demanded when the viceroy looked at him. The Naboo and Federation will sign a treaty, the viceroy said. I have assurances that the Senate will ratify it. He smiled at the queen. I will not cooperate, replied Sabe. She's doing well, Amidala thought. She's got my tone of voice down perfectly. The viceroy did not seem suspicious. Now, your highness, he said patronizingly to Sabe. You are not going to like what we have in store for your people. In time, their suffering will persuade you to see our point of view. Amidala ducked her head to hide her expression. What is he going to do to my people? Turning to a nearby battle droid, the viceroy said, Commander, process them.
Yes, sir,
the battle droid replied. It turned to a group of identical battle droids and said,
Take them to Camp 4.
Camps? They're herding my people into camps? We can't stop them. They have more than enough droids to overwhelm our security forces. One of the battle droids shoved her toward another of the handmaidens. Keeping her head lowered, Amidala joined them. At least the switch worked. They don't know if it's not really me, and they can't get a legal treaty without my signature. But what if the viceroy is right? Can't watch my people starve, and maybe die, and not give in? Shivering, surrounded by battle droids, Amidala followed her other handmaidens, and the queen out of her palace.